In this video, I will talk about some great financial decisions that I took when I joined my first job as a software engineer. It helped me to save a lot for the future, to buy a super bike, to buy a car, to buy a house. Hold on, I haven't bought a house yet. So whatever I'm going to discuss in this video is around the Indian context. So if you're someone who's not from India, it might not be very helpful for you. And I know that you're gonna thank me years later after watching this video and implementing whatever I did. So the takeaways and the day one action items that you have to do when you join your job or when you start earning is towards the end of the video. Let's begin. Okay, little background about all of this. It all dates back to my college days. There was this professor called Jitendra Kumar in the Department of Mechanical Engineering. I'm pretty sure he's still there. He taught us manufacturing processes in the first year of our college. And since I was an industrial engineering student, he eventually became teacher for a lot of other subjects, which I was enrolled for in second year, third year, and final year. So coming back to final year, 8th semester, last working day, last day of the college. And the name of the subject was EDT, Industrial Design Techniques. It's a very weird subject. Let's not talk about that. So he was teaching us that subject and it was the last lecture. So that day he told us that since in a coming month or so we will start earning. So he didn't actually teach us the subject that day. He instead took a class on financial literacy. He actually gave a lot of financial suggestions that we should do when we start earning, and he also put a lot of reasoning behind all of that, and we couldn't understand the reasoning so much, at least I couldn't, being a kid, as far as financial literacy is concerned. So whatever he suggested, that it is still sticking with me even after like 7 or 8 years of college. Okay, so the first thing, insurance. He actually categorized insurance into like 2 or 3 parts. First one is those insurance schemes which offer you returns, as in you keep on giving some premium for let's say 15-20 years, and after 15-20 years you get some returns out of it. His suggestion was very simple, that insurance and investments should be treated separately. They are not the same thing. We should mix them, which means that don't fall for these insurance schemes which promise you some return. They are actually good for nothing. What you should instead get is term insurance or life insurance. So term insurance is an insurance where you pay some premium for 30-35 years, and for that time if you die, your family gets some money, and actually a huge amount of money. So to give you an example, for a 1 crore term insurance, your yearly premium is somewhere around 6,000 or 7,000 if you apply at the age of 25. So this is like hands down you should do it. As a software engineer, you can also have disability insurance, where for software engineers hands and eyes are very important, and if something happens to those, it can actually take a toll on your remaining life. You got the gist. And for the medical insurance, you still need medical insurance, right? You never know what can happen to you or your parents, God forbid. I mean, we shouldn't anticipate that something happens, but still. So most of you will be joining some big tech companies or startups. All of them actually give pretty decent insurance offers. It's part of your job offer where they give decent medical insurance. So you should take external medical insurance only if you think that the insurance provided by the company is not enough, or maybe it's not covering your dependents, but in most of the cases it does. So second thing, the long-term savings. I was reading this book called Psychology of Money, and it mentions a very interesting example. The name of the guy is Ronald Reed. He became famous after he died. So the interesting thing about that guy is he was a janitor. So he, after dying, his will said that he will be donating his $8 million of savings to some NGO. And how he basically made $8 million is the interesting thing. He actually invested all his savings into the index funds, and he did it periodically. An index fund, you can think of it like the Sensex index that we have here in India, which represents the entire market, or a mutual fund which has a great diversity. Okay, so our professor, he told us to never keep your funds in a savings account. Just keep an emergency fund, which is generally equivalent to 6 times or 6 months of your salary. Just keep that, and apart from that, invest everything you can. And where to invest it? Pretty simple. First is FD and RD. They are just okay. I mean, those are not actual real investments, but RD is good for savings for 2-3 years. Maybe you want to buy a super bike, you want to do some systematic savings. RDs there. Then we have mutual funds as SIPs. I'm pretty sure all of you already know what mutual funds are. If you don't, you can just search for them. You'll have like a basic idea of what they are. So again, to put things in perspective, just see this SIP calculation. If you do 5,000 of SIPs for let's say 30 years, this is the kind of return you can expect. So I've considered rate of interest to be 12% because it is kind of an average of the Sensex index for the last couple of years. The next thing in long-term savings is PPF. So PPF is beautiful in the sense that obviously you get this 1.5 lakhs of tax benefits every year, but the even more interesting thing is that the returns that you get after whatever 15, 20, 25 years is not taxable, which means that all the compounding that you would do every year over those 1.5 lakhs every year is non-taxable, is totally tax-free, which means that you should max out PPF every year. Yes, you should. Okay, we are back at our home. So the next thing Professor mentioned was short-term savings. Well, the funda was very simple. We are not going to use our savings account. So the next best option we have is recurring deposit or RD. So it's actually great for short-term savings. Additionally, you can do an SIP of mutual funds for the same amount of time. Maybe in mutual funds you can expect more returns, but it depends on the fund that you have chosen. And obviously it depends on the market as well. So I remember when I bought my Superbike, I actually saved 50% using RD and 50% using SIPs in mutual funds for 3 years. And I was able to get a good return, but mostly on the mutual fund side. Okay, next thing the professor mentioned was stock market, and I think professor didn't like stock market for some reason, and maybe that's the reason I never jumped into it in a full-blown way. So I'd say if you have the knowledge and if you have the time to explore it, all the best. But if that's not the case, then I would suggest to play safer. That's what I do. So okay, and that is about stock market. I mean, there are a lot of other good videos about stock market you can learn and start investing. And the last thing that professor mentioned was understand the difference between needs and wants. And I think in these days everybody knows that. Again, the funda is very simple. Focus on your needs first. You have to prioritize your wants, whatever fits in your budget, whatever you can actually maintain. I remember getting the Superbike, then the maintenance was another thing which was kind of pain, and there's this constant fear of dropping the bike, somebody else ramming into the bike. And the other thing was, if you get a Superbike in India, the parts are not available. Something happens, even if the bike falls, the motorcycle is done for a month or so, and you cannot use it because the parts will take around a month or two to arrive from Europe or Japan or whatever. So yeah, for your wants, think for a second. I've seen people who barely have like 40,000 per month salary and they are using an iPhone worth 1 lakh or above. I'm not sure if it's a good idea to do that, but if you can, why not? Okay, so time for takeaways. It was kind of a quick session. I didn't actually go into details. This is what I roughly remember what the professor suggested and what I did. So the takeaways, these are the things you have to do on day one. First is open a Demat account. We have a lot of options, Zerodha, ICICI Direct, and a few other good options as well. You can compare rates and everything online. The second thing is open a PPF account and make sure to max out PPF every financial year. Then get a term insurance, get a disability insurance, software engineers, eyes and hands, And the last one, save and invest first, spend later. Okay, if you ask me, why should I even save? I mean, why should you even prioritize saving instead of spending? We want to live life on our terms, we want to spend, right? And it increases the GDP. I was reading the Psychology of Money book and the perspective was very nice. Do it just for the sake of it. Very simple. You don't know what future holds for you. It's full of surprises, financial crisis, recessions, job loss. We don't know. And the history repeats itself, which probably means that all of those things will happen again. We don't know when. So that is a good reason to save. The last thought that I want you guys to leave with is save money for having the highest form of wealth. And when you ask me what highest form of wealth is, it is the ability to wake up every day and say, I can do whatever I want today. If you like the video, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And I generally make content around software engineering and technology career. So stay tuned. There is a lot of good stuff planned ahead. Bye-bye.